Hello, people. I'm Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
And we are doing our review of Master in a podcast style because I was speaking with ACHARA earlier today, and I realized that our conversation was probably going to be lengthy enough that it warranted having a podcast arrangement. There won't be a lot of cutting in this. It's going to be a casual conversation, and we're going to try to get all of our thoughts out. And so just hang tight. And not hang tight, but kick back.
Relax, grab a tea, get a drink.
Yeah, chill out.
Or, do something else and listen to us.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very chill review. So, Master is written and directed by Lokesh Kanagaraj. There's 6 credits for the writer. It's mostly Lokesh Kanagaraj for dialogue, screenplay, story. He's got multiple dialogue, screenplay, and story credits. There's also dialogue credits from Aradhana Kumar and Pon Parthiban.
Okay.
And it is starring Vijay Sethupathi and Joseph Vijay?
Joseph, I thought he was, I guess that's
I thought it was
Thalapathy Vijay.
Yeah, I thought it was Thalapathy Vijay.
Yeah. I guess that's just his, special title, There
are no lenses in these frames. This is just for fun, just FYI. People are making fun of me earlier during the stream. I'm like, I just like how it looks. And then we got Malavika Mohanan and Andrea Jeremiah, Arjun Das, who's got the deepest voice in the world.
Oh my God, yeah, and that guy.
Nasser, I guess there's a whole bunch of people in this movie.
Nasser, the man who you pointed out is in literally every single movie.
Right, correct.
Yes.
So my short summary of my feelings about this movie, just for TLDR, or too long didn't watch, TLDW, is that I like this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of positive here, a lot more than I was expecting to get out of it. It's a long movie. I mean, with Indian films, you're expecting it generally to be around 3 hours. You're expecting it to be on the longer side. And I did feel the runtime. Sometimes you watch a 3-hour film and you don't feel the runtime. It just flies by. When I watched something like Interstellar, I didn't feel the runtime. And with Dark Knight Rises, I felt the runtime, And this is an instance where I felt the runtime, but I still enjoyed it. And it's surprising what they were able to do with this film and what they weren't able to do. So there are these two extremes that I feel with positive and negative, and we'll break it all down. But overall, I had a very, very positive experience with this movie. And I watched it, ACHARA and I both watched it exhausted, and we were still enjoying this movie. So that speaks strongly about this movie. I remember, speaking of Interstellar, I watched that on 0 sleep. I got 3 hours of sleep because it was a 3 a.m. runtime, a 3 a.m. showing, and I really enjoyed it nonetheless. It kept me engaged all the way through. And so that, to me, if I'm sleepy and I'm still really engaged with your movie, that speaks volumes about it. And so anyway, we have the IMDb one-liner. It says, an alcoholic professor is sent to a juvenile school where he clashes with a gangster who uses the school children for criminal activities. That is actually an incredibly succinct. Is succinct the word I'm looking for?
Exactly.
It's very brief and to the point, and it captures everything about this movie in a single sentence. It's not often you get IMDb, hitting it right on the head of the nail like that. So
yeah, good job, IMDb.
Yeah, over the course of the story, you're spending a lot of time with this alcoholic professor, and you learn about how much swag he is, how much, his students are loyal to him and back him up. And, you don't learn a whole lot about his backstory over the course of the movie, but you fall in love with him as this professor guy who has the backs of the children.
Yeah, no, totally. And the funny thing is, he's one of those characters where, as you said, we don't actually learn a lot about him through his own words. Mm-hmm. If I were reading a script or a story and I was going to try and break down the character, I would have to judge what I know about him from what other people say about him and how they react to him and how they relate to him. And that was certainly the case here, he's well loved by the students, and he kind of puts himself out there for them, and he's unconventional. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see that through his actions, but you never really hear him say anything really substantial about himself, which I found quite frustrating.
You learn a lot more about the villain than you do about the hero in this particular movie. Yeah. And what's funny is the way the hero conveys his backstory is not dissimilar from Joker in The Dark Knight. It's like his story keeps changing throughout the movie, and it's kind of a funny thing. They make fun of it in the film, and I mean, it's a fun movie. It's got it's got dramatic moments, and it's got a lot of heightened action moments, and it's got some great music. It's got a lot going for it. Yeah. But there are shortcomings in this movie, and we'll explore that in the spoiler section. So I think that about wraps up the non-spoiler stuff. We liked it, but it's far from perfect. So Vijay, Thalapathy Vijay, I thought, I got to get this out of the way. Spoilers, by the way. This is the spoiler part of this discussion. This has nothing to do with the movie, but Thalapathy Vijay, or Joseph Vijay, looks so much like Chuck to me. He goes by Chuck KOAY on this channel. His name's Charles Babb in real life. He looks so much like Chuck to me, like a young, fit Chuck. You know?
Okay. I'm going to take your Chuck KOAY, and I'm going to raise you beneath Beep Kumar.
When he's shaved.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's shaved.
Yeah, when he's shaved, I was totally like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Am I seeing Beep from George Indian right now?
Yeah. And so the way the film starts out is there is this fire happening in a town, and this young man just lost his family, his parents, and there's these three mafia guys, these three goons, I don't know what you want to call them, they're gangsters that are sort of controlling the town, and they're about to kill this young guy who is the young version of Vijay Sethupathi, and they threaten, his life, but they end up sending him to a prison, and for whatever reason, instead of just killing him, they torture him while he's in that prison, and what they inadvertently do is make him the toughest guy in that town.
Yeah.
He ends up becoming so ridiculously tough that no one can hurt him. And he has this really cool thing that he develops in the movie, which I like. There's a lot of cool
ideas.
There's a lot of cool tropes in this film that if you were to say it outside of the context of the film, people would know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I'll give you 2 minutes to kill me.
Yeah.
If I say that to anyone who's seen the movie, they're going to know exactly what movie you're talking about. If I was walking around with a beat up bucket, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what this is in reference to. There's a couple of things like that in the movie, or if I was just like, do that.
Yeah, you know what, that was so interesting to me, because it's like they created these really cool physicalities to kind of set the different characters apart, because there was also Vijay Sethupathi's like hair flip.
I wasn't a big fan of that, but that was there.
I didn't love it, but I was like, that's cool that they tried to do that, because they had his younger character kind of do the hair thing and the flip, and then he kept doing it, and then they had what you showed there with the collar thing. Both of the characters did it, but they did it in a different way, almost like to go, they're kind of similar, but they're kind of not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So the contrived part of this movie that I sort of wondered about after it was over was why Vijay Sethupathi never went after Thalapathy Vijay while he was a master at the school. It's like he's got all this power. He's running this, very well-greased operation, but he doesn't just go after the main character at any point in the movie. It seems very strange to me that for this guy having all this power, he wouldn't just try to take him out. It seems like a hole in the story. I forgave it because it's just like the movie overall is very fun, but to me that's a big hole.
Well, I guess he was just trying to, demolish him with mental and emotional warfare by taking out his best friends and stuff. Right.
And so I got a little bit ahead of myself. In the beginning of the film, we establish where exactly Vijay Sethupathi's character comes from. And I thought they did a really good job of helping you to understand how he became Bhavani. Yeah. This mythological bad guy. He becomes larger than life, and they establish something else, which is, there's a number of things that you often see in, Tamil or Telugu action films, where these guys have this like indestructible power, and they're like superheroes inexplicably, and they don't ever get hurt. Whereas this film went against all that. It really showed you where Vijay Sethupathi comes from. Like in jail, he's getting thrashed a lot, and he's like, you either die or you get tough to the circumstances. And he got so tough that the guys who were thrashing him got exhausted. Yeah. Without even hurting him at all. Right? And he's punching the walls very regularly, toughening his knuckles up. I'm like, that's all well and good, but if we don't see him fighting, I don't understand how he learned how to fight. That's really important, right? It's just brute force, kind of like the villain in season 1 of Daredevil, or just all through all of Daredevil, really. Kingpin. Yeah, he's like Kingpin, essentially, which is cool. I like the idea. Sure, you don't have to show him fighting. He's just that tough. But I think that they should have trained Vijay Sethupathi at least in boxing or some kind of hand-to-hand combat, because that was the thing that stood out to me the most. I'm like, you've got this dope-ass actor, Vijay Sethupathi, who sells these lines perfectly. Like, I love watching him. He's so good at what he does. He's stellar, except when it comes to the fighting, which is exactly what my concern was before going into the movie. Now, with Thalapathy Vijay, he's not perfect. He gets his ass handed to him a couple of times in this movie. Like, even when he's chasing the bad guys outside of the prison, he's getting cut up by the swords and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then in the final fight with Vijay Sethupathi, he's getting tossed around and he's getting bloodied up. I thought all that stuff was great. They really brought home the John McClane effect, because he's not perfect. He's an alcoholic. He ends up in jail at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of flaws with his character, which I thought was fantastic. Even the thing that propels him into his Joseph Campbell's hero's journey was this huge mess up where his phone, he didn't hear his phone when these kids were calling him, and because of him, these kids died.
Yeah.
I thought that was all great stuff. It's that it doesn't really go beyond that. Like, you've got all these cool tropes in the movie, not tropes, but these cool like visual motifs and you've got these cool setups and just a lot of cool ideas, but then it never goes beyond that point, which is, I was actually more forgiving of it with the main character. You were a little annoyed that it didn't get any deeper.
Yeah, I was quite annoyed by that, actually, because I felt like they had so many opportunities to go deeper with both the main character and the villain, and I wanted to know more about them. I thought with the villain, they could have done the cool thing of, like, humanizing him, because he did come from a traumatic past. But instead it was like, oh, he had this traumatic incident happen to him and now he's just a bad guy. And I was like, somehow I don't really buy that. But okay.
With Vijay Sethupathi?
With Vijay Sethupathi as the villain. Like, I did. That he just became so hardened and there was nothing, no sense of mercy or anything. I mean, maybe it makes sense. Like, it was beaten out of him. There was no one there who showed him any kindness. So he was like, what do I have to do? Like, he has no empathy for the other children that he's using when he used to be one of those children, It just kind of baffles me.
It's a little bit contradictory, because his whole thing was, especially early in the film, was make sure they're fed, make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah, make sure they have drugs and cigarettes and booze.
That too, but like, in his own warped way, he is taking care of those people, I think, is what the movie's establishing. They could have driven home the point a little bit stronger, but I think they did establish it early in the film that he's trying to take care of the people. Even when he's going to kill them, he's feeding them really good food. The biryani and all that stuff.
Yeah, I felt like that was some sort of twisted message, though, where it was like, here, I'm going to give you some kindness, and then now I'm going to kill you because I'm that much of a sick, twisted bastard.
I think it's open for interpretation.
Sure.
But the way I interpret it is, in his own weird, warped mind, he is taking care of them. So I liked all that stuff with Vijay Sethupathi. I just wish that he was better trained. The stuff with the truck near the end of the film, that was interesting because they set it up. They set up this the lady, what do you call that, bow and arrow?
She was a teacher. She was the archery teacher.
Yeah, they set up the archery thing, and it became a bit Fast and Furious towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
But it was like, by that point, I'm like, I'm all in. Like, I just want to see where this is going now. Yeah. It's like, you've got me on this roller coaster of a ride. And so one of the big selling points of the film is the fight scenes, is the action. And as someone who has studied a lot of martial arts, when I say a lot of martial arts, I mean just in terms of length of time. I've studied martial arts for a long time. I've studied fight scenes. I've created fight scenes. And watching this, having watched so many fight scenes, especially from Hong Kong cinema, which I feel like is the gold standard of fight scenes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of moments in this movie where it's like, oh my God, these are such good ideas. I wish they just took it a bit further. I think the best fight in the whole movie was the final fight between Vijay Sethupathi and Thalapathy Vijay, truth be told. Like, I thought that was the most stellar fight in the entire film, but outside of that, it felt like a lot of filler fight scenes. And it's like, okay, I see that they're doing this action stuff, but it doesn't feel like there's heart in the fight. It feels like it's just
Like it's just for show. Like
Yeah, it's just for show.
Cool. Because I was bamboozled by the coolness factor. I think I really enjoyed the stuff on the train. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was neat. There was a lot of neat ideas, but there was a lack of, for whatever reason, there was a lack of commitment in certain moments where it felt like either Thalapathy Vijay was holding back or the stunt people were holding back. It didn't quite sell all the way. And for the only fight scene that really had any nuance or story to it was the final fight. Like that actually had, a whole story within the fight.
Right, because there were stakes and everything.
Right? Well, not just that, but just like within the choreography itself, it wasn't just one note the entire time.
Gotcha.
Whereas it felt like that with all the other action scenes in the movie. It's just like one note. So, for instance, the archery scene, right? At the end of the movie, near the end of the movie when they're getting in front of all the trucks. What was different from the first arrow to the last, honestly, other than they swap places? Like, really, what was different in that scene? You were literally watching the same note play for the entire scene. And every single action scene was kind of like that, where not a whole lot changed. The stakes didn't change a whole lot throughout the sequences. Whereas with the final fight, things kept changing over the course of the fight.
Right, yeah.
And I just wish that they did that with all the fights in the movie. Not that they all had to be at that level, but just that nuanced, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
The dance sequences are really fun. I thought the music videos in the movie were cool, and they were very catchy songs.
I freaking loved the soundtrack to this. It was really, really good. It was like all songs that I would happily play back and listen to. So really, really great job on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The costuming was nice. The way it was shot was really nice.
Yeah.
I thought the cinematography was pretty cool in this movie overall. Like I said, it was just a really, really well-made movie. The part that is sorely lacking in this film is the main female character. Her name,
the character's name is Charulatha.
Charulatha, yeah.
Played by Malavika Mohanan.
She was literally a plot device in this movie. Like, she's the thing that puts him towards this new location. And then, like, it's like, really, what does she do in the movie?
I guess she's kind of inspirational, and she had a bit of a like strong, sassy personality. I just wish that, that she was able to like kind of stand up for herself a little more. It was all just like, oh, okay, JD, you take care of it. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Like, can't you be just, I know, I get it, JD's the hero, but can't you be a little bit more badass? Like, at least Andrea Jeremiah got to be, a bit of a badass with her archery, and she comes for the ride and is all like, I'm going to avenge my dead husband or whatever.
Yeah. But the female characters completely disappear at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, where does she go? Was she there? Did she drive back?
Yeah.
Probably that's what she did. She probably just drove back.
But like, there's no resolve between Charulatha and JD at all. Like, at the end of the film, he just ends up in jail. Like, there's nothing between them, which is kind of weird, given that there's this whole pseudo relationship that's established between them. Like, there's no romance in them. But for it being 3 hours, it's amazing what they weren't able to do, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we kind of skipped over this when we talked about Sethupathi Vijay's character, but I was also just so frustrated with JD's character because he is such an interesting person.
You said Sethupathi Vijay. Did you mean Thalapathy Vijay?
We talked about Vijay Sethupathi's character,
right,
the villain,
yeah,
but we didn't discuss JD,
right,
Thalapathy Vijay's character.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah, I just kind of, glossed over it or whatever. But I felt frustrated because I feel like they missed an opportunity there because he is such a cool hero. He's a really cool character. He's flawed, but he has a lot of love for his students and he would do literally anything for them. And especially when he has that kind of, what is it? Like that moment, I don't know what you would call it in the hero's journey or whatever, where he realizes like that switch happens when those two kids end up getting killed.
The point of no return.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly that. So when he hits that point of no return and he's like, oh my God, that was all my fault. This is what I have to do. Like you see all of that in him, like just what an interesting character he is. Mm-hmm. And yet there's that running joke about how he never tells what his backstory really is. And I just felt so let down at the end of the movie because I was like, I want to know what his backstory is. Like, you've got a 3-hour movie. Can you at least give me a clue instead of these bullshit stories that he's ripping off from movies?
They told you what his backstory was. It was very quick and it was very brief, but his old professor or boss told I think the lady.
Yeah, he did, but I'm like, I just wasn't satisfied with that. Like, I wanted something more. Like, okay, so he was just full of grief that his mentor died.
So yeah, okay.
And then he turned to drinking.
Yes.
I'm like, somehow I don't quite buy that.
I did. The thing about it is, it was okay. The scene before it is with the girl, and was it with the girl? I think she got annoyed, and he said, like, ask me why I stopped drinking. And she asks him, and then he tells her it's because of the students. And he goes, it's like that, you know? And I made the assumption that maybe there's something there as to why he started drinking at all. And then in the very next scene, she's talking to that dude who explains, you know, he was an orphan. He's got no family. And he came under the wing of this professor who then died abruptly. And then he turned to drinking. But he didn't let go of education in that world. He still dove deeper into that world, but he became an alcoholic. And I can totally see someone becoming an alcoholic off of something that traumatic. I'm like, think about it. If you have nobody else, no one else, like this is your father figure, it's your mother figure, it's your everything figure, and then they die. Like, I can imagine you turning to drinking, and then one drink turns into 10 drinks, turns into like, and then you're just an alcoholic. I can see all of that even from that little summary.
Okay, I get that. That's fine, and okay, I guess that's cool that they did that. But I think what I really wanted was just a moment where JD is real. Just like, even for like a minute.
He was real. When he was talking to the, when they took the kids away in the truck and he comes back to the prison and there's those remaining guys, instead of beating them up, he's just talking to them and explaining to them like what their potential future is. When he pulls, what's his name? Das out of the truck, instead of beating him up, he talks to him and he's real with them. Like, isn't that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but I think what I mean is like being real about himself.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's just like too obvious. But I just wanted that moment where he's just like, yeah, this is who I am. I mean, you're right. He was real with the students. He was, you know, like genuine with them. But I don't know. I just feel like they missed an opportunity to just kind of have him be real and vulnerable just as himself.
Right. I got a little bit confused when she when the Thalapathy Vijay drew the fake tattoo on the lady, and then he ended up beating up the cooks and stuff like that. I didn't really understand what happened there, because if the tattoo is supposed to be a symbol of you're part of something, I don't know why he then tried to beat her up with his like spoon. The cook. I was just confused by what was going on there.
I thought that maybe they recognized that it was just a pen and they were like, what the F are you trying to do, lady? Or maybe they just don't ever let women have it.
Yeah. What the actor playing Das, his name is Arjun Das.
Yeah.
I thought he was such an interesting actor in the film. Like, his voice is just crazy deep.
Yeah.
And his character has an arc by the end of the story. It kind of comes abruptly, but it's fine. I thought he was an interesting character. I just wish they sort of nuanced that he had more levels to him so that it felt more warranted how he makes that switch at the end of the movie. He just changes sides kind of abruptly off of what Thalapathy Vijay and him talked about outside the truck right after the archery scene, right? After the Fast and Furious archery scene. It's like, he's like, ask him this question, see who, blah, blah, blah. He's going to try to kill you. Like, you know, Thalapathy Vijay sort of predicts it. And then Das goes in there and he sees that what Thalapathy Vijay said is true. Suddenly he changes loyalty. Suddenly he's a good guy. You know, and it's like, it just seemed very abrupt as opposed to nuancing that he's a deeper dude than he seems on the surface. And he's capable of good. The movie never shows that he's capable of good. If anything, it shows that he's despicable.
Right.
And then there's this abrupt change at the end of the film where now they're on the same side. I was like, well, that's interesting. I kind of wanted to see him get his ass kicked by Thalapathy Vijay at one point because he was such an asshole.
Oh, he did. In the kabaddi game.
A little bit. Not enough.
Okay.
It wasn't enough. I wanted a little bit more ass kicking in his direction, but nevertheless, I thought that he was a fantastic actor. I thought that he was a fantastic addition to this movie, and I look forward to seeing more of him. To me, he looks like a young combo of Ajay Devgan and Shah Rukh Khan, and I think he's a real up and comer.
Well, clearly, Lokesh Kanagaraj liked him enough that he put him in 2 of his movies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there definitely is something really special about him, and I'm sure he's going to have a bright career ahead of him. I also appreciate that, you know, at the end of the movie, he doesn't get away with
that's another thing.
The crime.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Because he killed someone, regardless, whether or not Bhavani was a good guy or a bad guy. He still murdered someone, and so you did the crime. You got to do the time.
There are consequences in the movie.
Exactly.
And it's not often that you find that in these types of action films. That's what makes it. That's what sets it apart, and that's why, for me, this is one of the best. It's Tamil, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's one of the best Tamil action films I've ever seen, in my opinion. Even though I've got my complaints, even though I've got issues with it, for me, just all around as a package, this is one of the best Tamil action films I've seen to date, because it has so much going for it in terms of it sets up things. It's got motifs in the movie. It's got great music. It's shot well. Cinematography is fantastic. It's got heart. And there's consequences. It's like there's a lot of important things for a good that would be the markings of a good movie here. It's just it falls short in certain areas I wish that there was like one more pass with the script or something like that to improve on those things. Like one of the complaints you had was that you wish that they went a little bit deeper with Vijay Sethupathi and
with Thalapathy Vijay.
I guess with both of them then.
Yeah.
That there was just a little bit more depth with them. And I'll give you that. I feel like they could have had more depth there. They didn't explore it as deep as they could. But all things considered, I think that they did a fantastic bang-up job here. There are things that are very unique to this movie that I think really stand out and make it and just give it that cool factor. And to me, it is. I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again, but I think it is very watchable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing with Lokesh Kanagaraj. Like, he knows how to make an interesting and engaging commercial film.
I agree with you. He does know how to make an engaging and commercial film. But I think the biggest thing for me, even though it is lacking, like in the ways that we pointed out, it's got heart, and I think that's what matters a lot.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about Thalapathy Vijay's acting in this film.
I thought he was really good.
I always love it when you have an actor that is able to do the crying, that like just the tear. That's so like, I'm like, how do you do that? How do you have just the tear? And there was this like cool setup in the jail scene where, you know, it was a little bit melodramatic, but the mom of the 2 kids is crying, and the lady, Charulatha.
Yeah.
She's like, how come you're not crying? Have you ever never cried? Look at this mom. How come you still not? You're heartless. What's wrong with you? And then he gets thrown in jail. And he's got this letter in his pocket that the kid left. It's like this cool setup. Like, what's in the letter? And the letter just breaks his heart.
Yeah.
That's a nice moment. And then the letter gets torn from him because the thugs come in there to rough him up. And it just sets him off. And you know it's going to set him off. You know what's going to happen. And he just destroys them. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this fight scene was kind of one note. Like, he's just destroying them. But there were cool moments in there, like with the light, like you pointed out during our watch along, where the light's moving back and forth in the jail. So, like, there's a lot of cool cinematic moments in the fight, even though it wasn't really a challenge. He just destroys them from start to finish. Yeah. You know, but it was still cool. Like, it was.
No, there's definitely style and a sense of aesthetic.
Yeah. I liked the game, even though I didn't know the rules of it. I enjoyed what was going on there. Where
that's a real game.
Yeah, I know I didn't say it wasn't. I'm just saying I don't know that game, but it was cool what was going on there. The movie reminded me of my own experiences with teaching kids and whatnot. And like, you know, Thalapathy Vijay's character just has a very profound impact on the lives of these kids.
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like. And so I could really identify with this movie. And I think maybe I was projecting a lot onto the main character, whether it was his flaws, his mistakes, or his accomplishments in the movie. I just thought that was really cool. Speaking of IRL, it seems like there's a deeper message in this movie. And it bordered on being preachy, but it was just short of it. And so I appreciated the messages that they were driving home in this story.
Yeah, because they were touching on a lot of things like politics and, teaching the students how to be involved with politics and all that. And then you've got you have choices. You can choose to, not succumb to your situation and believe in something better and try and work your way out of it. And all that. I think overall the messages were super positive. I'm sure there are more in there that I haven't even talked about.
As we both know, the movie was edited down from its initial runtime. I think it was initially 181 minutes, and they cut it down to 178. And that scene that they took out, we did a reaction to.
Yeah.
And I think they should have kept that scene in there. I think it would have helped. Because my prediction was that it just didn't flow with the rest of the story. And that's
I didn't miss it.
I think I did, because it seems a little bit contrived that this lady forges a signature to get him into that
fair point.
Juvenile hall.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? You did what? That bitch is crazy. When you take that scene out, she's crazy.
Right.
But if you leave that scene in, she's just trying to figure out how to navigate around this corrupt system.
Yeah.
And I buy where she's coming from, because what the film did was, in that scene, it's more nuanced with, what is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
Someone's doing something outside.
In that scene where he's attacking the kids, the deleted scene, for those of you who haven't watched the deleted scene, you should watch it. In that scene, it's more nuanced in terms of what's going on in their heads, right?
Yeah.
Thalapathy Vijay isn't so verbal with his intentions, and the lady who he's basically backing up, it's like there's a lot of nuanced stuff going on in this scene, whereas what they have now is very, very on the nose. It's very expository.
Right.
The whole first 20 minutes of the movie is her learning about who Thalapathy Vijay is, and all this back and forth talk. And it's very loud, and it's very forward. It's not nuanced. And so it's trying to basically make the excuse of why she forged that thing. But I'm I just kind of wish that they had kept that scene, and I wish that in place of all this expository dialogue, they managed to have more nuanced scenes.
Well, yeah, it's like what I said. Most of what we learn about JD is from what other people tell us about him, rather than just seeing his behavior and his actions and what he says and what he does. I mean, there is that as well, of course, because we're judging him on what he does and how he behaves. But so much of it in the beginning was literally just, JD is like this, JD is like that.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is I just really liked the whole thing with Bhavani and his setup of I'll give you 2 minutes, and he's got the knuckle thing going on. All the little motifs with his character I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
They made him a very memorable bad guy.
Totally.
The setup with him was cool, and his final moments were interesting, where he's trying to cut a deal.
Yeah, because that's what he does, right?
Yeah. And then the way that Thalapathy Vijay kills him, it was a bit...
It was surprising.
It was a bit much. I mean, he just picked him up and tossed him. I was like, all right. But it was cool. It's it was unexpected.
Well, I was wondering when I saw the meat hooks and no one was using them, I was like, is no one going to use that as a weapon? That's my first thought. But then, they did. Right.
So what they did was they successfully pulled off Chekhov's gun.
Right.
Because if your Chekhov's gun is if you're going to show something, if you're going to show a gun, you got to use it. And so if you're going to show something, you need to use that thing. You can't just be there. And so with the archery scene, after that scene was over, I forgot about the fact that the movie had that.
Yeah.
And it comes back. It's like, oh, that's really cool. They brought that back around, even though the scene was silly as hell. I just thought it was neat that they brought that back into the film, because I just forgot about it. Anyway, I enjoyed this a lot, and hopefully you guys did too. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast style review. If you didn't, it's the one you're getting.
Sorry about that.
So hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell icon, all notifications, please. And thanks for hanging out. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.